Happy Halloween, everyone, and welcome to today's GoSaaS webinar. My name is Megan Day, and I'm your moderator. Before we go ahead and get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items for today. Our session is currently being recorded, and you're in listen-only mode. If you have any questions throughout the presentation, please type them into the Questions tab. We will go ahead and answer your questions at the end of the session. Our presenters today include Tom Nelson, Partner at GoSaaS, Tejas Patel, Vice President of IT at Iteris, and Zeeshan, Sheikh, Partner at GoSaaS. So to give you a little bit of background on each presenter, Tom has implemented and upgraded Agile PLM and Cloud PLM for more than 150 customers, which includes several Fortune 100 companies and contract manufacturers. Tejas is a valued customer of GoSaaS. At Iteris, he manages IT operating models strategically and cost efficiently for numerous global companies. And last but certainly not least, Zeeshan has more than 13 years of experience with PLM applications at several Fortune 1000 companies, specifically with the high-tech and med device industries. So today's agenda consists of who GoSaaS is. We'll cover the ins and outs of Cloud PLM. We'll go through our Iteris case study and the journey of upgrading to cloud. And thanks again for joining, and I'll go ahead and hand things over to Tom.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining. So we'll go through some of these slides fairly quickly and get into the demo for you so you can see what the product looks like. So GoSaaS is perfectly aligned for the cloud. We have an implementation methodology that's purpose-built, allows rapid cloud project deliveries with consistent results. We're a mid-sized firm, so we're big enough that we have every skill, but we're small enough to be flexible. We can, excuse me, we can provide support and working around the clock. We have a global team, so we can configure everything to shorten your project timelines, provide project support globally, and post-go-live support as well. When we look at our records, we've got better than 96% on time and on budget for the projects. We've done over 250 implementations. The team has done that. All the experience is baked into the methodology and our products. We have many productized solutions. So we've got a very unique library of products that help provide faster solutions. We've got the most complete offering for the Cloud PLM at this point. We've been working with the cloud for greater than 3 years. So we're the only SI with automated migration tool. We call it the GoSaaS Migrator. We're the only SI with Cloud Advanced Security Admin tool. We have two-way EDA and CAD integrations. We're the only SI with an entire module built on Oracle PLM Cloud. We've got an environmental governance and compliance, and we've got a fully integrated employee training record management tool. So a little about the cloud itself. We're going to be talking about product development. You can see that down in the middle here. But the cloud itself offers everything from innovation through development and commercialization. So we'll be concentrating on the areas up here, but the system has innovation management, it's got PLM, it's got the commercialization, it's got quality system, project management built into it. So everything is built into the single site. So essentially what we have, we're going to talk about a product called Product Development, PD for short. This is essentially Agile PLM. It's the next generation of Agile PLM. So it's kind of bigger, better, faster. It'll do all the things that Agile did, and it'll do quite a few more things for you. So under the product development, of course, we've got item management, so you can create, classify, find, and reuse items. You've got full BOM management, actual BOI, we're calling it these days, bill of information because it's more than just the parts list. It's got full change management, manufacturing and commercialization, so you can get full manufacturing readiness because you can gather all the information required to support the rest of the enterprise. And then you've got tools for product readiness insight. So you can analyze, you can grade items, you can look at the BOMs for the supply chain, and you can do release and sourcing readiness. So one of the advantages you've got is you can create, as you're used to in Agile, you can create your engineering BOM, but the system also allows you to create a manufacturing BOM, services BOM, production BOM, customer BOM. All that can be done in the system. Okay, so we're going to get into the Cloud PLM demo here pretty quickly. So the things we'll cover, we're going to talk about the new UI. It's much more modern than the Agile UI, easier to follow and find things. We'll go into the item management, show you the product structure, show you how BOM grading works. We'll talk about some business rules in the system. The system now, one of the advantages is you can put in business rules on the various attributes. So for instance, if I type something into one attribute, it will only allow me to type certain things into other attributes, or you can use it to filter your drop-down list based on other attributes. So you can do a lot of real-time validation of the data as you're going through. It's got built-in business intelligence, so you've got full set of analytics, and then of course you've got your workflows, your approvals, and then your overview. And it's also got socialization built into the system. So something like, instant messenger and things. So you basically can eliminate emails going back and forth as you're collaborating. All that's built into the system now. Okay, so basically the key takeaways up here is you've got a drastically upgraded functionality. It essentially brings Agile PLM into the 21st century. As I was saying, the whole UI is different. It's been upgraded, cleaner, easier to get through. All the analytics are built in. You've got rules engines. You've got the social change management. It's also easier for new users to get into the system, as well as minimal training for current Agile users. So your processes don't change. The thought process stays the same, but the user interface is usually easier to navigate for people. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into the demo here. So here I am. This is the first page that I come to. This is my home page in the cloud. You've got socialization over here. You can send out news. You can do all kinds of different things. You've got product quality management. There's a built-in supplier portal available. You can get into procurement. So basically, everything you can think of, from the innovation all the way through the commercialization, can be available through the one interface. All the data is stored in a central hub. I'm just going to jump in here and show you some of the analytics and the pages that you can do. So very simply, I'm just looking at some quality issues here. I've got a nice table format. This is the way the searches look. You can configure these. You can add attribution. You can filter whatever you want. But one of the advantages is if I open up one of these, right at the top, I've got a set of what they call infolets. So I can see at a high level, without even drilling into the system, what's going on. So I don't have, in this case, this is a high severity non-conformance. I've got affected objects, so I can click here and it will take me immediately to the affected objects tab. So the information's available right there. I can see for my workflow which step I'm in, which status I'm in. And the system, one of the great things it does, since all the information's in one place in the system for everything you're working on, it will automatically, as you're creating these things and filling in particular attributes, it goes out and looks at the database, and it will come up and tell you immediately if you've got similar issues. So you don't have to run queries. You don't have to be aware of other things going on. The system does its best to get you that information. Okay, so just one example of some of the information that's available. I'm going to come back to my home page, and we're going to go into product management. This is where you can get into the innovation management, concepts, portfolios. We're going to stick with the product development for today's demo. This is, as I was saying, this is the new generation of PLM in the cloud. So it comes up, as you can see, I've got a different infolet. So I've got ways I can identify favorite items. Think of this as kind of like a real-time bookmarking. So I can say, you know, I've been working on 17 unreleased parts. I've got 6 that are released, and what it does is it shows them all down here. So if I want to jump into these, it's like my recently visited, but it's permanent. It is more like bookmarks. If I've got changes that I'm part of, I can see right up here, do I have changes that are overdue, approaching the deadline, waiting for me to review? So if things are in process, you know, if I've been put on the approvers list, I can see the information right here in a summary. And then over here, these are changes that I've created that I'm going through. So I've got open, pending approval, 33 approved. If I want to drill into any of these, I just simply click on the little arrow, and it'll bring up the list down below for the complete list for everything I'm looking at. And then I can easily see where they are in the process. This is the workflows, the statuses of the workflows. It gives me summaries like how many red lines do I have on this particular object, how many affected items, all kinds of information without having to drill down. And then I've got things down here. I get notices, 174 days in the current state. Well, that's a problem, of course. So it shows me a lot of basic information that I'm looking for. Okay, I'm going to go ahead up and open up some items that we can look at. So I've got, for instance, here, favorites and recents. This is equivalent to my recent items view in Agile. So I can have 10, 15, 20, however many items that I want. And this works across the entire spectrum of the applications in the cloud. So if I'm looking at manufacturing information, and then quality, and then product development, all of those items stay here. And when I want to see them, I click on it, and it takes me right to those items in the system. I've also got my favorites. So these are like bookmarks. I can create folders, create my own folders setup. And then if I come down into here, I can actually open a part. So I'm just going to open up this item. It's got thumbnails. You can put multiple thumbnails out here so you can see the pictures. You've got various attributes out here, including cost information now. This is built into the system. So you can do roll-up bombs and things like that. So you've got, if you think about this, this is like the title block or page 1 in Agile, but you've got a lot more capabilities. So down here, I've got more information. I've got my EG&C information. So I can format these and configure this with whatever attributes I want, and you virtually have unlimited attribution in the system. So you can create, you know, literally thousands if you wanted to get that carried away. You can put that many attributes in here. You can put the headers in here, and you can actually close things up. You can control access to the attributes with roles and privileges, even including you can hide the attributes from people so they don't, you know, a lot of people don't know they exist. You've got, we'll get into a second, you've got, instead of your tabs across the top of the item, you've got tabs down the side here. So for instance, you've got attachments, here's your structure, your bill of materials, your AML, changes, quality, relationships, and a couple others we'll get to again in a minute. The other great thing about having all the information in one place here is I'm looking at this part. If I come up and look at these little dots, I can immediately see assuming I'm tracking it in the system, I can see my current inventory. I've got all the attribution there. I'm not controlling it here. I'm not controlling it through PD, but I can access the information and see what's going on. So for instance, if I'm doing a change order and I'm going to delete a part or I'm redesigning a sub-assembly, I can see how many parts or how much product will be affected in the environment. I can come over here and see manufacturing, so I can see material control, costing, WIP materials. And as I go across, I can see physical attributes, look at my planning, orders on hand. I can look at purchasing, what's on order, purchase orders, things like that, sales and order management, and service. So I've got at my fingertips, I've got a tremendous amount of information that I never had in the Agile world. And that's part of the beauty. All the information, all the data is stored in a centralized database. So the entire cloud has access to the information. It can share the information back and forth. Okay, so quickly, I'm just going to go down through. So attachments is basically attachments as you had before. So literally any electronic file that you can store in the computer, you can store in the library here as an attachment. If I open up the structure, this is your essentially BOM tab. You've got a lot of the same capabilities you had before. So you can look up here. I've got items with changes, items with attachments. If I've got AML associated with it's there. It will do multi-level hierarchies for you, so you can drill down as far as you want to go. I've actually taken this to 64 levels, and it works just fine. As I scroll over here, you can see you've got your descriptions, your sequence numbers. This is akin to the find numbers, revisions for each of the items, quantities. If you're doing circuit boards, you can have your reference designators, your unit of measures. Another one of the additions in here, if you've got more information that you want to put out here and you get tired of sliding back and forth, you've actually got a little item here that you can pop up and show all kinds of different attributes in here. So in here, I've got things like things for my EG&C information. I've got conversion factors. I can put cost information in here. So basically, this is a configurable pop-up window, and you can put whatever information that you want, that you deem usable or needed in here. And then as I slide back over here, you can see I can actually have all my cost information included in here as well. And of course, you can hide all of these. I can come up to my view tab and I can control which columns I'm going to see, the order of the columns, all kinds of things like that. If I come back here, I can look at the hierarchy again and just keep going down. And of course, you can put parts and documents in here at any level you want. So I can just keep going down through this and get all the way. In this case, this is for a semiconductor, so I can get all the way down to the mask set in the system. Okay, so I've got that kind of information. I can go to the AML tab here, show the AML for the entire system. In this case, I'm looking at the top level. If I really want to see the AML, I go down and find another part. One of the new things you can do in here is I can look at either the item AML, so for the part that I've picked, I can see the AML, or I can come over to the structure AML and kind of see AML for the entire product. So one of the things you couldn't do in Agile before. I can come here to the Changes tab, and as you saw before, I can have pending changes and released changes. I can come to the Quality tab, and if I've got quality issues or actions, they're there. I've got a Relationships tab, so I can relate this literally to any other object in the system that I want. And a couple of the new things that I've got is I've got a Team tab down here, so I can identify who's going to have access to the system. So I can, for instance, if you're doing something like ITAR, I can come down and be very specific about who gets to see it. If you're allowing suppliers into the system, you can put them in here. You can set up rules. And then down here, I can do item grading. So another one of the things you did not have in Agile. I can say, for instance, I want to show me all items with no AML and search for it, and it brings up, and it'll actually give me information about the entire system. Okay, so that's at a quick glance, that's basically the cloud, the PLM in the cloud. We're going to jump back into the presentation here and continue with the overall webinar. Okay, so I'm going to hand this off to our illustrious Iteris representative and let him talk. Okay, Tejas.
Great, thank you, Tom. Appreciate that. So as Megan kind of introduced me earlier, my name is Tejas Patel. I am VP of IT over at a company called Iteris. Iteris is a publicly traded company based in Santa Ana, California. We're about 100 million in revenue, and we are in our second quarter. We just finished our second quarter closing on our Oracle Cloud environment. Our company is focused on the two discrete markets within smart cities as well as digital agriculture. We have three different lines of business. We have a manufacturing line of business, a consulting services line of business, and a software as a service line of business as well. For the purpose of this webinar, from the manufacturing perspective, we manufacture the cameras that you see at a lot of the different intersections across the country. We manufacture those cameras here in Santa Ana, and that's the kind of core focus of what we use PLM in the cloud for. We were on Agile previously, and if we move on to the next slide, I can get more into the scope of what we were planning as far as the overall implementation. The scope of our implementation, we were on Oracle 11i as well as a legacy version of Agile on-prem. The scope of our implementation included financials, all of the supply chain modules, projects. Within HCM, we were doing timekeeping as well as the core employee profile information in HCM. And we also did the FP&A module within Oracle called EPPCS. So that was the kind of the core high-level scope of our implementation to upgrade to Oracle Cloud. And we chose Oracle Cloud because it was the platform that was going to be able to scale with our company, given that we're in three different lines of business, and we are anticipating growth across all three areas. We wanted to pick a product that's going to be able to scale with us as we continue to grow. And the thought process for including Agile as part of that roadmap was also because we didn't want to deal with integrations and data integrity risk from having the core upgraded and keeping Agile the way it was. So we included Agile as part of that scope for upgrading as well. We landed on GoSaaS as our partner for a few different reasons. One, as we were looking at our implementation partners, we were trying to evaluate whether we should go with a big bang approach and choose one implementation partner for the entire scope of what we're upgrading, or whether we should go with a best of breed approach. The more we thought about it as a collective team internally, we felt more comfortable with going with the best of breed approach where possible. Obviously, couldn't go with the best of a big bang approach for the entire implementation, but we could choose a best of breed for certain modules. And one of the modules that made a good fit for best of breed was the Agile PLM module. And talking to our Oracle sales reps, we asked them for some recommendations because there weren't that many companies when we were looking, and this is about a year ago. We started our upgrade back in July of last year. And as we were looking at the landscape and looking at the different implementation partners out there that had experience with Agile PLM or PLM PD in the cloud, there weren't that many experienced vendors out there. And speaking with our Oracle sales reps, they got us in touch with GoSaaS. We met with the team and we felt comfortable of going with a best of breed approach with this particular module. And they worked in parallel with our core implementation partner with upgrading Agile PLM, and we were up and ready to meet our go live date. Our go live date was the start of our fiscal year. It was April 2nd of this year, and if we flip to the next slide, I could go through the overall implementation process. So the pre-implementation training and the overall methodology that we adopted with GoSAS's help. We started that pre-implementation training back in July of last year. And then we did the migration workshops and the configuration management to stand up our pod. And GoSAS was helping us hand in hand with a lot of the data loading. And we went through a couple of different rounds of CRP before we went into UAT. And that process worked out very well for us because we learned a lot in the first CRP, a lot of lessons learned that we'd incorporated in the second CRP. So that was invaluable. And that UAT end user training, even though we wanted to wait until our fiscal year start to go live with the new system, GoSAS was able to get us up and ready by January 1st in all practicality. We had to delay the end user training until we got closer to the go live, just as we wanted to have the system turned on for all modules at the same time. So that was kind of the overall kind of approach we took with the methodology and sequencing around timeframes. If we move on to the next slide. So in terms of the overall effort and the project, we were able to deliver on time and on budget for the Agile PLM upgrade. As I said earlier, we could have delivered it much earlier, at least 2 or 3 months earlier, but we chose to delay it. We didn't have any scope creep or any budget creep as part of this upgrade, which is very rare from an upgrade standpoint. We had exceptional support with GoSAS. They're still our go-to partner for production support issues. I'm working very closely with Zeeshan and the team in terms of just troubleshooting issues, or if we receive patches, in terms of helping us with understanding some of the issues that may surface from absorbing some of these patches from Oracle, as well as any issues around training. We've had to circle back on training with our end users on multiple occasions, and that was one of the lessons learned. Is if I were to share things with folks on the call here, we had to make sure we try to put a dedicated focus on training as part of our upgrade cycle. But even after we upgraded a few months into the new system, we found that users still needed to revisit some of the training and process steps to how to navigate through the system. So I would share that don't think of training as a point in time exercise. It should be a recurring exercise. We're still going through it right now, as our users are still dealing with processes that aren't daily in nature. The ones that are more monthly or quarterly, they tend to need refreshers on how to do certain process steps. So we are going through revisiting on some of those training aspects as well. And I shared earlier some of the benefits that we realized from upgrading Agile as part of the core system. We don't have to deal with integration challenges. We chose to go with an out-of-the-box upgrade with 0 integrations and 0 customizations. And we're at the point now where we're looking at adding some more integrations into our architecture. But to keep things as simple as possible, we chose to go live with as much built-in Oracle's modules as possible, so we don't have to deal with the data integration risk and challenges from handshakes between different systems. So that's kind of the main benefit that we realized as part of going live with Agile PLM. And with that, I think at this stage, I'll hand it off to Zeeshan to talk through more of the details as part of our overall upgrade, as he was our main partner on point for our account. So Zeeshan, I'll hand it over to you.
All right, thanks, Tejas. All right, just to give you a bit of background, Iteris was using Agile PLM for 20 years, if I'm not mistaken, and they were primarily using it to manage their parts, documents, bills of materials, and change management. And then, as Tejas mentioned, they decided to move to the Cloud PLM system. So talking strictly about this particular implementation, the scope was to bring in Agile PLM 934 data and configurations into the Cloud PLM system to facilitate NPI, bills of material management, and also to release engineering bills of materials to manufacturing. An engineering change process was also in scope to manage product changes and product retirement. And last but not least, manage manufacturers and manufacturer part data. Next slide, please. All right, so let's get into the implementation details now. From a security model standpoint, we ended up building custom roles for the whole project. I'll give you a couple of examples. An item management role, custom role was created. This was sort of a change analyst, admin kind of role that allowed users to create items, manufacture parts, change orders, route changes, etc. Another example was a read-only type role, which would allow users to read objects and also to approve on change orders as well. We created separate custom workflows for change orders and deviation subclasses. We utilized the available rule engine to configure rule sets and perform validations that display custom error messages. For example, if a person or a user did not select a priority or did not enter a reason for change, the system would display a custom error message. Then it was decided to bring in existing parts and documents from Agile PLM with their current numbers following a data cleanup. And since we are talking about data migration, we decided to bring in the latest release revisions for parts and documents and their corresponding attachments. In addition, migrating the AML and bill of material data was obviously in scope as well. Lastly, using the out-of-the-box analytics tool, we trained users to create global BI reports or even personal reports if need be. Next slide. So let's talk about the upgrade journey. So this is a high-level representation of a typical project flow with timelines. As you can see that we always begin with a kickoff and planning, and then the idea is to set up a PLM instance, a Cloud PLM instance, with sample data from Agile PLM. The idea is to make sure trainings and workshops are more productive, as the customers can then see their own data and make sense of what is happening. From this point onward, we start with a pre-upgrade or pre-implementation training for the core implementation team, and this is followed by migration workshops. Let's talk about these in a little more detail. So as far as the pre-implementation or pre-upgrade training is concerned, it's meant for key business process owners and the core implementation team. What we have seen is that the migration workshops become more productive as the trainees are able to provide much better input and make better decisions when they are all trained to the same thing and they are all on the same page as far as application functionality is concerned. So the workshops become a lot more productive that way. As far as the migration workshops go, once the pre-implementation training is complete, we move into the migration workshops. This is generally an on-site activity. As part of these workshops, we look at the current or as-is processes, and the goal is to come up with a to-be design and get sign-off. The outcome of this phase is finalized design. based on this design, we go back and start configuring the new Cloud PLM system. This includes configuring your subclasses, your attributes, your change orders, workflows, etc. And once we get into the configuration piece, that is where the GoSaaS Migrator features, as it allows you to release your Agile PLM configurations to a cloud-based PLM test environment or any lower environment for that sake. All right. So once we are done with configurations, the next phase is to migrate the data. All right. Following the data migration, we get into and when we're talking about data migration, that is where the GoSaaS Migrator features again, because it allows you to easily migrate data as well with taking very robust approaches there. And I'll talk about the GoSaaS Migrator a little later. After the data migration is done, we start getting into the validation stages, that is CRPs and UAT. During CRP, the process owners and the core implementation team are asked to test the system and verify that the configurations have been done properly. GoSaaS provides CRP scripts, and these scripts are nothing but a series of steps that allow you to walk through the process areas that have been configured and that were in scope, and to gather feedback whether a particular step passed or the whole use case passed or failed. And you have the provision to gather objective evidence in that case. Any configuration fixes that are needed are addressed post-CRP. So depending on the implementation cycle, you can have one CRP or another CRP as well if needed. Following a CRP, we get into user acceptance testing. During UAT, a broader user base is involved. This is their chance to test the system and provide any feedback about custom configurations that we have done or the data that has been brought into the system. Finally, we move into the end user training. This is similar to pre-implementation training, but the idea is that this training follows or is done for a broader user base. We follow the train the trainer approach, where we train the customers' trainers, and then they can go ahead and train the broader audience. We do provide comprehensive training package that can be used to train the other user base in the organization and not just the core implementation team. Following end user training, we get into the planning for the go live and stabilization phase. As part of go live, what it entails is migrating all of the configurations as well as the data, and that becomes your production environment now. So from kickoff to go live, you can see that it's typically a 16-week timeline. Quick yet important note here. So we were talking about the GoSaaS Migrator facilitating the configuration and data migration. And what we have seen is that using GoSaaS Migrator, the cost for as-is migrations are similar to an on-premises upgrade. We haven't seen a lot of cost differences there, so just something to think about. All right, so this is a nice segue into the GoSaaS Migrator. Next slide, please. So we've been talking about migrating to the cloud from Agile PLM on-premise system, and we thought that it would be best if we could make that whole migration process simpler. And sure enough, we built a product called GoSaaS Migrator to achieve that. There are two sides to it. One is the configuration migration piece, and the other is the data migration piece. Let's talk about the configuration migration piece to begin with. Next slide, please. So the configuration migrator converts your Agile PLM configuration export files, those .agl files that we are familiar with, to cloud importable configuration package. Your Agile PLM admins will export configurations from your Agile PLM system. These are your .agl files, and then feed those .agl files to the configuration export utility. The migrator will take those files and convert those to a cloud importable package. It's essentially a zip file, which is a whole package, and essentially that whole package can then be consumed or uploaded to the cloud. The current version of the product creates classes, lists, and attributes, both your DFF and EFF type attributes. Future versions, we're working on getting exports available for security and workflows as well. Next slide, please. All right, so this is a couple of screenshots from the tool itself. As you can see from the screenshot on the left, this is where you can upload your source.agl files. Click on the red button, and you'll have a cloud-compatible zip file that will get generated. You can then take this generated zip file or the cloud importable package, go to the manage, we can go to the next screen, go to the manage configuration packages screen, use that task, and upload that package. If the package uploads successfully, you'll get a success message as shown on the right side here. All right, so that was the configuration side of things. Let's talk about the data migration side of things. So once again, for a data migration piece, you'll begin with extracting data from Agile PLM, doing any transformations that need to be done. And then at that point, you evaluate if the out-of-the-box utilities that the cloud has to offer would work in this case. If so, perfect. Let's go ahead and use the file-based data import utility that the cloud offers and upload the data. However, if as part of that evaluation, you determine that those utilities may not work or are limited in some fashion, you essentially go to the GoSaaS Data Migrator. This would make use of the web service scripts as well as Selenium scripts to complete the data migration for you. So this one product essentially covers both sides of the spectrum, the configurations as well as the data. All right, moving on. So that was essentially all that I wanted to cover. I'm going to hand it back to Megan, and we can take question and answers now.
Great, thanks, Zeeshan. So as a next step for all attendees that are here today joining us, we'd like to offer and let you know about one of our offerings that we have for this webinar. If you'd like to go ahead and schedule an assessment workshop, a complimentary one, we can go ahead and assess your current Agile functionality and review your data in Agile PLM. And at the end of the session today, you'll be receiving an event survey in your inbox. So if you'd like to go ahead and indicate if you're interested in going ahead and signing up for that, please go ahead and do so. And also, if you fill out the survey, we will be sure to send you the slides for today as well as the recording. So now we'll go ahead and jump into questions. We've had quite a few come through, so thank you all for submitting those. The first one I'd like to go ahead and pose to Zeeshan. Frank is wondering if revision history comes through during the migration.
Yes, it can be brought in.
Okay, great, thank you. And then Tom, Carrie asked, how would FDA validation be handled in the cloud?
There's actually a full validation protocol. So you have your IQ, OQ, and PQ. Oracle themselves can provide the IQ. There is a partner who is specializing and partnering with Oracle to provide the full validation from one end to the other.
All right, thanks for that. This one, I'll have Zeeshan go ahead and answer. It's from Freddie. He'd like to know if customizations in Agile PLM get ported over, or do they have to be rewritten?
Right, so that's a good question. See, there are differences between the APIs for sure. So while the logic can be utilized, there is some extra coding required to make those customizations work.
All right, thanks for that. This one I'll have Tom, go ahead and answer if you would. It's from Sydney. During the migration, does revision histories come through? I think we already had that one come through. Zeeshan, I believe, answered that, and that was correct. Yes. Thanks, Sydney, for that question. I'll go ahead and have Tom go ahead and answer this one. Robert is asking if you can comment on project management in the Cloud PPM module.
Sure. There is a full PPM product available in the cloud. It's essentially like the Agile PPM on steroids. It gets into the full project management, resource management, cost management. It can tie into the financials. It can also tie into the manufacturing. It allows you to track, like if you're using innovation management, you can tie that into the project. So your early phases become part of the project, as well as your development all the way through commercialization. So you can actually do quite a bit more with the product in the cloud than you were capable of in Agile. Okay.
Thank you. Zeeshan, Vicky would like to know, what is the duration of a typical project in comparison to an on-premises upgrade?
Right, so the typical timelines that we see are within 12 to 16 weeks, 16 weeks just to be on the safe side. That's a typical timeline that we're seeing. And as I was mentioning as well, what we have seen is that as is migrations, if we don't have a lot of customizations, a lot of integrations in play, the typical timeline is around 16 weeks.
All right, thanks for that. Tom, we have another question come through from Julie. How much training is needed for admins and users?
The basic thought process is the same as Agile. So for instance, you have classes and subclasses. You have roles and privileges. They're all, like I say, the same thought process. The user interface is different. So you're basically looking at the new UI, but once you get used to the new UI, you can get in and set up workflows, roles and privileges, all the things that you normally do in admin. So typically when we do training for the admin people, it's especially people that are used to Agile. It can be as short as half a day, and typically it's closer to a day of training.
All right, thank you. Zeeshan Harry is asking, what happens to SDK customizations that are built specific to the customer?
Right, so once again, we have to look at those customizations, understand what the requirements are, and then eventually port those over. Even if there are customer-specific requirements, they need some translation to make them work in the new Cloud PLM system.
All right, thanks for that. Next question. Thanks everyone for sending these questions. These are great. Tom, the next question that came through is it possible to touch procurement and costing portion of Agile Cloud?
Yes. Basically, you have a data hub. They used to call it PIM, but you've got a centralized database that all the functionalities, so everything from your ERP, your MES, your sales order management, through manufacturing, all the way back through the PLM system and into innovation management. They're all sharing the same database. So as I showed in the demo, if you click the little dots at the top of the page on a part, you actually can see you have access to all of the data from all of the various activities. And all the different parts of the application do the same. They can all access whatever data is appropriate for what they need to get done.
All right, thanks. Zeeshan, Jason is asking, what type of control would a PLM admin have in updating the cloud interface and workflows?
Right, so unlike Agile PLM, where you have a Java client admin tool, you do administrations by using tasks here. And as Tom was mentioning, training, with the right amount of training, you can do administration without a problem. And you'll have absolutely the same kind of control that we are used to as part of the on-premise solution. You have a bunch of tasks. If you want to modify configurations, be it attributes, be it workflows, you want to decide on creating new workflows, all of that can be done. And it's all tightly coupled to your roles and privileges. Not everybody can go into the system and start creating these things. So an admin would have pretty tight control over the configurations, and doing the configurations is still pretty flexible.
Great. Tom Parith is asking, do we have any version restrictions for the migration?
Well, we haven't exactly tried to migrate Agile 8.5, but we know how to do that. As far as the Agile 9.x, I don't believe we have any restrictions. We've done Agile 9.3 and the various versions within that, so we're capable of that. We know the data structure and everything else. So as we go back farther and farther, we may have to tweak a few things, but we don't see it as any problem.
All right, thanks. Zeeshan, next question comes from Archana. Does it need separate user licenses for each of these modules, similar to the current Agile licenses?
Right, so cloud licensing is done differently. It's not user-based anymore. It's, from what I've heard, based on the number of records. But I would recommend contacting Oracle and talking to Oracle about specific licensing requirements.
Perfect. Lots more questions. Thanks for sending these through, guys. Next one for Tom. Edward is asking, does this integrate with SAP?
Yes, we've got integrations already in place that can go to SAP and various other either on-premise or other cloud applications.
Thanks for that. Zeeshan, Michael is asking, a follow-up to the rev history, how much more complicated does it make migration?
It makes it complicated, but it's not that complicated or something that is outside the possibilities of getting it done. It's just, I don't know, I mean, maybe twice as complex. That's just a number that I can come up with, but it does make it, it's similar process. It's just that the record count increases, and with record count increase, there are all sorts of these complexities when it comes to like cleaning the data, making sure the transformations are all in place. So it makes it a little more complicated, but not overly complicated.
All right, thanks for that. Dimitri's asking a question, Zeeshan, that I'll go ahead and point towards you since you were involved with the migration. And if you could please describe the size of the system that was migrated, such as users, items, documents, suppliers. If you have rough estimates, if you can remember.
Sure. So I think I don't exactly remember the user count, but I do remember some of the other things. So say, for example, I think there were like 16 to 20,000 parts. And then there were like 18,000 manufacturer parts, close to 10,000 manufacturers, something like that. And then around, I think, 25,000 attachments, if I remember the numbers correctly.
All right, thanks for that. Next question from Guillaume. Tom, could you please confirm if change history can be transferred over from Agile PLM to cloud?
Yes, it can. With our migrator, I believe at this point we're the only ones that have a methodology to bring over the full rev history. But yes, it can. Thanks
for that. Zeeshan, Vic is asking, was PD Cloud integrated to on-prem EBS?
Yes, it is.
All right.
Or should I say it can be integrated? Sorry.
Yes. Yeah, no problem. All right, Tom, have you worked on any upstream and downstream systems that send data and receive data from Cloud PLM? And how have you implemented them, if so, and what's the complexity and licensing model?
Okay, so lots of good questions in there. So yes, we have. We've gone to on various on-prem systems, be that CRM or ERP systems. We also have various CAD integrations where you can be working in your CAD, send information to the cloud, have the cloud send information back. So all of those things are capable. The cloud actually comes with a full integration platform. So depending on what you're trying to do, it may be ready to go. It's a full set of APIs with all the instructions and everything how to do integrations. We also have a full set of integrations that are developed. Some of them are using that particular tool, and others are using a version of our Migrator system. So we have a set of integrations for that. As far as the licensing model, there's two parts to it. If you're going with one of our tools, then we would be part of that model. If you're going with the Oracle product, then there's licensing that comes from Oracle, and we would just have to talk to the proper people, either at Oracle or within our midst, to see how many integrations, which integrations, what's the volume, how often are you going to be moving data, things like that, and how many people are going to have access to it. So we just need to do a little scoping to come up with some numbers for you.
Great, thanks, Tom. Next question for Zeeshan. What is the integration piece if you're still on Oracle EBS on-premise?
I'm sorry, Megan, can you repeat that?
What is the integration piece if you're still on Oracle EBS on-premise?
All right, so I think what you have to do is, so I think if I understand this correctly, you're trying to integrate Cloud PLM to on-premise EBS. So there are a couple of different ways, as Tom was mentioning as well. We have a tool, we call it the X Engine, that can be used as your middleware to integrate between the Cloud PLM as well as on-premise EBS. So that's one way. Oracle provides integration services as well, which can be leveraged to integrate with on-premise EBS. So there are a couple of different options to choose from. And once again, we need more details to answer this question in full detail, but at a high level, that's what it is.
Great, thank you for that. Go ahead and answer a few more, looking at the time. Barbara's actually asking, I think I can put this back to you, Zeeshan, how much data did you migrate and how long did it take?
Right, so I think I did give numbers, and I think it's related to the Iteris project. Once again, I think there were around 18K parts, and then around 18 to 20,000 manufacturers, around 25,000 attachments. And we went through a couple of rounds of data loads, and I think it was all done end-to-end. If I just talk about just the data migration piece, it was around 4 weeks, and could have been less if we could have gotten the data fairly quickly or all cleaned up and all that. So it can be quicker than that. End-to-end, the whole thing took around 16 weeks. The whole implementation took around 16 weeks, as I mentioned. And I think Tejas alluded to that as well, that we could have gone live in January. It's just that we had to wait for the other modules to catch up.
Great, thanks, Zeeshan. All right, last question here, Tom, from Abadella. Does Agile PLM Ed Cloud have a module similar to PG&C and PCM? I think you already covered the PCM portion, but if you could elaborate on the PG&C. Yeah,
GoSaaS actually partnered with Oracle, and we've put together a full EG&C product. So it will do all of the functionality that Agile PG&C does, and quite a bit more. So for instance, it's got conflict minerals built into it. It'll do reach. You can also do safety like UL, CSA, those kinds of regulatory things. So yes, there is a full module available for that.
All right, great. Thanks, Tom. And I see there's several questions left that we're just hit our hour duration of the webinar. And so this is all the time we have left for today. And thank you for submitting all of your questions. And for those that we didn't get a chance to answer, we'll be reaching out to you separately for an answer shortly. And if you have any additional questions or comments regarding what you saw today, please don't hesitate to contact us. And also please be on the lookout for that event survey so you can indicate if you're interested in the complimentary discovery session, as well as if you fill it out, you can receive today's recording. And this concludes our webinar. Thank you all again for attending and have a wonderful day.